I read 16 books in the month of February. Truly, I am so impressed with myself. So impressed. So today we're going to talk about those 16 books that I read, some of which I have entire reading vlogs on. So we'll go through those first because I can just swiftly tell you what they were. And if you're interested in more of my thoughts on those, you can check out the dedicated reading vlogs. First up, let me grab the books. The first vlog that went up in February, we read these 3 books. The first one is A Curious Beginning by Deanna Raybourn. This is a mystery book that takes place in London in 1887. It follows Veronica Speedwell. The book opens up to where she is at the funeral of her aunt, her spinster aunt. She decides, you know what, I'm finna get out of town, get out of Dodge, we're leaving, but then she gets stopped by a man who says that essentially her life is in danger. Somebody is out to kill her, but don't you fret. You can come with me to London. And in her brain, she's like, I don't want to go with him, but if I do go with him, I get a free ticket to London. It'll save me some cash money, so let me go with him. So she winds up going with him, and he then introduces her to his friend Stoker. Stoker and Veronica kind of team up together. Stoker is there to be essentially her bodyguard. They're trying to figure out essentially who is after Veronica, what is this big old mystery, and form this little friendship. And it was kind of funny. There were a lot of moments that I laughed, and I personally didn't connect to this book like everyone else does. I know a ton of people really love this book / this book series. I read a lot of mystery thriller type books. I'm more so into the thriller aspect than I am into the mystery. I don't know if that played a role because I recently discovered that not all mysteries are my cup of tea. It was enjoyable. I gave it 3 stars. There's my thoughts on that. Yeah, so that was book number 1. The next book that I read was, in fact, a thriller, and that is The Hiding Place by C.J. Tudor. Now, this was the second C.J. Tudor book that I've read. It was The Chalkman was the first. I did enjoy this one a little bit more than The Chalkman. So this one follows a guy named Joe who is coming back to his hometown in which he escaped years ago. So he's coming back to his hometown, lying through his teeth to get this teacher position to figure out what is going on. Because listen, a long time ago when he was a little child, he also had a smaller sister and she went missing, and it was one of the worst days of his life, or so he thought, until she came back. Things might be happening again. People are out to also get Joe because they want him out of town because secrets, and this was pretty dark. I enjoyed this one and I gave it 4 stars. I don't really want to go too much into this because it's obviously, you don't want to know. The last book that I read in that vlog was City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. This is like a coming of age literary fiction type of book. It reads very similar to The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, though I loved that one a little bit more than this one. If you too also enjoyed that one, I think you would really enjoy this one. So this one, at the very beginning of the book, we have, what was her name? Vivian. She is 19 years old and she essentially gets kicked out of college because she doesn't want to be at college. She never wanted to go to college. She doesn't care about college, and it showed in her grades. So the college kind of kicked her out, sent her back home to mom and dad. Mom and dad are pretty well off in this time, which was kind of rare because this is in the 20s. She also gets booted out of their house because they're like, if you don't want to put any effort, you can just get going on your merry little way. They do continue to give her an allowance of sorts though, so she doesn't technically have to go out and get like a job, but she does go to the city to live with her aunt in New York. Her aunt owns this theater. It's also really struggling. They are having to like lease out the theater to other companies and such because they can't afford to pay their people and the mortgage and this, that, and the other alone with just their shows because they can't seem to fill the seats in the house. So she's there. We get a whole cast of like side characters and they're all amazing. You know, you have some books that have the side characters that all just kind of read very similar. Then you have some books where the side characters stand out. That's this one. Vivian is not a showgirl or in theater or anything like that. She's the costume put together, the costume designer. She sews the clothes, which is really cool. So she's backstage, but she's still like there in the middle of it all as they're trying to save this place. And then it also continues on after that. We go through war and what she does to get through that, to help the soldiers out. We go through love, we go through loss, we go through her life. She's telling a story. Actually, this is a letter that she's writing to someone, telling the story of her life. And as she's writing the letter, she's in her 80s. And so we get to follow her through her lifespan. Anyway, I really love this. I gave it 4.5 stars. So those 3 books are in my first bookshelf ultimatum video of February. And then I also filmed a second one, and those books are right here. So the first one that I read was The Girl Who Drank the Moon by Kelly Barnhill. In this one, we have this village where every year they bring the youngest baby to the forest as a sacrifice to this witch. And they've done this for hundreds of years. They do it every year. Nobody typically complains because they know that they're like saving the village, because they think that if they don't do this, the witch is gonna come and the whole village, okay? Meanwhile, the witch is like, I don't know what the fuck these people keep doing, why they keep leaving this baby in the forest, but I guess I will take it. She takes these babies and she brings them to another city with happy families to find them an adoptive home, because she doesn't want the baby to stay in the forest and die from starvation or whatever, because she doesn't know what these villagers be thinking. Anyway, so it takes like 3 days for the witch to get the baby to this new village. And so during those 3 days, to keep the baby alive, the witch is in magic, and so she feeds these babies starlight, right? So she just reaches up, pulls starlight from the sky, and feeds the babies. The starlight also ensures that these babies are also going to grow up and be very happy, successful individuals. So good for them, right? This particular sacrifice that we are reading about, she goes and gets this baby. First off, the mama, she ain't having it. She's pissed. She doesn't want them to take her baby. She's beating up who she could beat up before they take her baby. They do wind up taking the baby. The witch goes and gets the baby. Accidentally, when she reaches up to get the starlight, she accidentally pulls the moon, like magic, and feeds the moon to the baby. It magics the baby and makes the baby too powerful to just bring to somebody else to raise. So the witch is like, well, I guess I'm raising this baby. And so essentially we get to see this baby grow up and other stuff. There's a lot more to it than that. For example, the lie and why the village has been lying to their people. Is it to control them? I don't know. This was a really, really good book. I loved it, and I'm gonna keep it to eventually read to my kids one day, or let my kids read them, because my kids are learning to read right now and it's such a fun little treat. But there's that. I think I gave this 4 stars. And then I read Poster Girl by Veronica Roth. The whole time I thought this was like some kind of sci-fi book. It's just been chilling on my shelf. Nay, this is a dystopian novel, okay? A dystopian novel in which this takes place after the world went to shit. So you know, like in the Hunger Games, President Snow is still President Snow, right? You're in the middle, you're in the thick of it. This is when they're trying to put the world back together after the world went to shit. What they did was they took all of the people that were in power at the time and still alive, put them in their own little prison-like community. That's where our main girl is. She was just a kid when she was put into this community, though. I believe she was like 17 years old. They have since, 10 years later, they let all the kids out. So now they're adults, but they let them out back into the free world, except our main chick. She was at the cutoff, even though she was 17. The thing is her face was on posters everywhere during the time of the delegation, is what it was called. And that's why it's called Poster Girl. So like, people didn't know her, but they knew her face, and they would be like, hey, Poster Girl, and they still do it 10 years later. In order for her to get out of this prison, a guy comes to her, a guy that she knew in her past life before this whole thing went down, comes to her and is like, hey, so we have this missing child. Can you like help us find her? And if you help us find her, you can have your life back. You can be free from the prison. If you don't help us or you don't find her, then you'll live the rest of your life in this prison. No exceptions, right? Why is this little girl missing? Well, back when the delegation was in charge, you were only allowed to have one child per family unless you got like a pass from the government, and you only really got a pass from the government if you worked for the government, right? So if you had more than one child, they took that child and gave it away in the adoption system. Now that the delegation is no longer in charge, the new government is taking all the kids and giving them back to their families 10 years later. Can you imagine the trauma that these kids are going through? It's very dystopian. I really did enjoy this book, and I gave it 4 stars. Get a Life, Chloe Brown. This one is about Chloe, and Chloe needs to get a life. She has been living with her parents her whole life. She's like, I want to say like in her early 30s now, and she also has fibromyalgia, and so that's another reason why it kind of took her a minute to get away from her parents. Also, her parents are loaded, so like, why would you move? Like, truly. Anyway, she moves into this apartment complex. We have our dude here who, they don't really get along, okay? They don't really like each other. Long story short, they wind up falling for each other after Chloe makes this list and ensues help from Red to help her with this list, yada yada yada. The only thing, I gave it 3 stars. I was really loving it at first, and then it just kind of went downhill after like that 3rd act breakup for me. Also, I feel like our main character was really childish, but it's still a decent book, and I am going to continue on in the series because so many people have told me that this is the worst of the series, that it just gets better the more you go on. So I'll be doing that, babe. So those are all of the bookshelf ultimatum books that I read of the month. Let's dive into the other reads. Is this book also considered a dystopian? I read Ready Player One. I feel like everybody has either read this book or has heard about it, so I'm not gonna go whatever. This is a book in which a guy slash kid, he's really a kid, named Wade Watts is trying to capture these keys. You know why? Because listen, it's 2044 and the world is not doing so great. So everybody escapes into this Oasis is what it's called. It's a like virtual reality game where you put on those, I don't know the technical, I'm not a gamer, but it's one of those games where the people put on the goggles. Is it VR? I don't know. Okay, that's what it is. It's called the Oasis, and in the Oasis you can attend school, you can go shopping, you can meet up with friends, you can visit Mars. It is an entire world. It is an entire universe. It is an entire everything inside this game, and that's where most of the population does everything now, is in this game. But what this book is is the creator of this game passed away like 5-ish years ago, and he was a multi-billionaire. He launches this video to everybody, essentially because everybody is locked into the Oasis, so they all see it. It is a video of him saying that he has hidden keys in the Oasis somewhere, and the person who can find them and beat this little challenge of his gets his money. Good luck. Well, Wade, this student here, finds the first key, and that kicks things off. It took 5 years for someone to find the very first key, and there are people who do this for a living. Like, it is their profession, is to find these keys in the Oasis. They're known as the Sixers, and they're really horrible people. I digress. Wade finds the first key, and then after that it kind of trickles along, and not everybody, but a lot of people start finding the keys, and people are out to kill them because like there's a lot of money that they're gonna get if they do find the keys, and blah blah blah. There's a lot of 80s pop culture stuff weaved in there. I really enjoyed this, and yeah, I gave it 4.5 stars. So fantastic. It was a fun time. If you're looking for like those books that you can just escape in, this is one of those. So up next, I read The Girls at 17 Swan Street. I'm not going to go too much into detail about this one because it is very triggering. It's a literary fiction. It's very just character. You know what I mean? It's like one of those, there's not really a plot going on. You're just living with these characters, essentially. We have Anna. Anna was a professional ballerina dancer in Paris, and Anna decides to leave that life and move to Missouri with the love of her life, her husband. They get to Missouri, and Anna kind of goes through this spiraling with her life and not having like a purpose, and then it gets to the point to where she then finds herself dealing with an eating disorder and needing help but not wanting help, not seeing that she's not only harming herself, but she is also destroying people around her as they watch her go through this. Someone talks her into going to Swan Street, this house on Swan Street, and she meets a bunch of other ladies going through similar situations with her. We see her ups, her downs, her ins, her outs, the struggle. It's very triggering. It's very raw, very heartbreaking, but very good. There is a movie that this reminded me of. It's not super similar, but similar, with Keanu Reeves. It's very similar to that, but definitely check the trigger warnings and just know that it's very intense, but good. So I gave it 4 stars. And then we have Deep End by Ali Hazelwood. I have read 2 other books by Ali Hazelwood. I kind of got behind in the Ali Hazelwood world, so I didn't snag this up when it first came out, but I did very shortly after, because then I started seeing other people talk about it and I was like, okay, let me just go ahead. And I forgot how much I truly enjoyed Ali and her characters and the way she writes romance, and I love this one. Now there is a page at the very beginning that talks about how, though this is kink, it is consensual. Listen, I'm not like super into romance. I don't read it often. I do read it, but it's not like my main whatever. And I typically don't reach for books that have a ton of spice in them, because I prefer, you know what I mean? And so when I saw that it said that, I was kind of like iffy going into this, and I had a few people on Instagram message me and be like, I don't think you're gonna like that. I heard that it was super spicy, like spicier than her other works. I am here to tell you it is not. It is not as kinky as people make it out to be. Coming from someone who prefers not to read that kind of stuff, and I know what you're thinking, like, Beth, if you prefer not to read that kind of stuff, why did you pick it up? I don't know. I'm glad I did though, because I really loved it. Is it my favorite Ali Hazelwood? No, but it is my second favorite. I've only read 3 of her books, so is that saying a lot? I don't know. But I will say my favorite of hers is The Love Hypothesis, and we have Olive and Adam are in this book too. They're the professors. I did give this book 4 stars. These characters are like 2021, so they are pretty young for me, compared to me. I am no longer in my 20s. They're college students. It's like a new adult. Beth, what is that about? Well, there's a competitive diver and there's a competitive swimmer, and essentially the competitive diver, the diver is the girl, and her name, what is her name? Scarlett. She overhears her swim coach talking to her boyfriend, them breaking up over the fact that the girl is a vanilla and she likes to stay that way, and she just doesn't see her and the guy clicking, because the guy likes the sub-dom situation. He likes to do things in the bedroom that she's not a fan of, and so they agree to like go their separate ways but stay friends, okay? Then one night they get drunk. They're at this little party, and the girl, what was her name? I don't even remember. Penn says, Scarlett likes to do the sub-dom, and so do you. Y'all should totally fuck. And so that's what they do. Lucas, that's his name. The swim captain, Lucas. And not only that, they also have to like work together because of, you know, science, medical stuff, and there's other stuff, you know. It's a romance book. I really enjoyed it. If you like Ali Hazelwood, but you're like putting this off because you think that it's going to be like a lot of kink, like 50 Shades of Grey or something, it's good. And the kink is not, it's barely there, trust me. They're not calling each other daddy, they're not taking cum shots, like it's pretty good. Yeah, so 4 stars. The next book that I read was Beautiful Ugly by Alice Feeney Shiny. I read this book for my book club, Cereal and Milk, which is hosted over on Fable, and I also do a live at the end of the month or somewhere around there with my friend Katie to talk about the book. It's a fun time. You should definitely join us for the month of March. We are reading not Gillian Flynn. I wish Gillian Flynn would come out with a new book. We are reading Gillian McAllister's new book in March, Famous Last Words. So you should read this and join us. Anyway, so this book opens up. We have this man who is on the phone with his wife. He's an author and he just hit like the New York Times bestseller list. And so they're gonna have like a little celebratory drink, and he's waiting for his wife to get home, and he's on the phone with her as she's driving down the road. She sees someone laying in the middle of the road and she's like, hold up, I gotta stop. And he's like, no, don't stop, come home, or call authorities, don't get out of the car. She winds up getting out of the car, and next thing you know, she's missing. The cops find her car there, they find her purse there, they find her phone there, but she is not there. The wife is missing. Fast forward a year, old dude is in a writing slump. He is like looking over his shoulder every 5 minutes. What happened? Where'd my wife go? Who took her? So then his like writing publicist, whatever it's called, who's also his wife's aunt. So like that's how he got his big break, is his wife's aunt helped him out there, because before that he was a struggling author. Okay, well anyway, she's like, so I got this cabin. It was one of my past clients' cabin. When he passed away, he didn't have anybody, he left it to me. You can use it as a writing place like he did, and maybe that'll help get you out of your reading slump, get you away from your house, time away to just kind of like clear your head, whatever. You should go there for a couple of weeks. It is on like this remote Scottish island that has like population 25. Sounds like a dream, truly. So he goes there, and while he's there, he sees a woman that looks identical to his wife. Is it his wife? Is he seeing shit? What's going on? That's all you need to know. I will tell you this, there was this one scene in here, there's this bed and something happens, scared the ish out of me. And that's all you need to know. And I gave this book 4 stars, 4.5 stars. Like, it's not my favorite Alice Feeney, but it's not my least favorite. There's that. Another book that I finally read that has been on my bookshelves for such a long time. You know, like when you have books on your bookshelves that you're like, I fear I'm gonna love that, so I'm gonna put it off for a while. I don't know what it is, but I've heard other people say the same thing, so. Anyway, Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. Read it. Loved it. This is a techno thriller, if you will. I'm just gonna barely glaze over this because it's one of those books that I think you just need to read it. You just need to experience it yourself. So just for a little peek of what can go on is we have this man. He has a very loving wife and they have a son. His like old colleague is having a little party down at the bar, and he tells his wife, he's like, hey, I'm gonna go to the bar with a drink and I'll be right back, because like I truly would rather be here with you than be there with them. And she's like, bet, I'm gonna cook dinner, see you in 45 minutes. He goes to the bar, he meets his colleagues, has one drink, and he leaves the bar. And he's like, it ain't even been 45 minutes, I'm ready to get back home to my family. So he's on his way home, and boom, he gets kidnapped. Wakes up, his wife ain't his wife, his son doesn't even exist. What is going on? It's crazy. Shit gets buck wild in this book. It is intense. I loved it. And I believe there's an adaptation of this, and I can definitely see why, because it reads like it would be a really fast-paced thriller movie. I need to check it out. I gave it 5 stars. Was this your first 5-star of the year? Yes, bitch. Actually, no, it was not. I read Percy Jackson in January, but because that was like the 3rd, 4th time that I read Percy Jackson, I just gave it 5-star because that's what it is. So it wasn't like a true first 5-star read of the year because it was a reread. Does that make sense? I don't know. But this is like my first like new 5-star of the year. Well deserved. Well deserved. Up next, I read Variation by Rebecca Yarros. This is my 3rd, not counting the Fourth Wing series. Okay, outside of the Fourth Wing series, this is my 3rd romantic book by Rebecca Yarros. I think this might be my favorite of the 3. They're not like, I did cry when I read this. There was a scene that made me legitimately cry. So that, to me, you get points for that. They're not like all-time favorite books, if you will. I still really love this one. This was another book where our main character was a ballerina, but you get to see a lot of ballerina talk and other ballerinas, and you get to, you know, and I didn't realize how much I love that. I didn't realize how much I enjoy books where the main character, the main female character, is an athlete, like this one, like Deep End. There was another book that I recently read where the main character was an athlete. The one with the 2 figure skaters. So this one, our main female character is the ballerina, and she has a horrible accident and has to take a break. Like, she is a, you know, like there's tiers. She's not a prima. She's right before a prima. She's a very well-known popular ballerina, and so was her mother, and so was some of her sisters. She has 3 sisters, but unfortunately one of those sisters passed away 10 years ago, because 10 years ago, when she was a child, like a teen, her family would always go to their little summer house in that town. She met this guy, and they were just like friends for the summer, for a couple of summers, until something really horrible happened on both parts. We don't know what happened to him and like why he did what he did until the end of the book. But for her, it was her and one of her sisters got in a car accident, and she was the only one to survive. And now it's 10 years later, and she goes back to this little lake house and sees that guy again for the first time in 10 years and battles with her feelings that she still has for him, because he was like her first love, and then also battles with the betrayal of him leaving her when she needed him the most. It's very emotional, but very good. I need to start, I keep not holding the books up. There's spice in it, and I feel like the spice is pretty well done. It's not overly done. There's a little girl in this as well that we get to see a lot of, and I love little kids in books. And he is a professional, like he works for the Coast Guard and he dives into like oceans and stuff to save people. Like he's that kind of person, okay? I enjoyed this and I don't remember what I rated it. I think I gave it a 4-star. Hang on. I gave it a 4-star. In my little thing, it says probably more of a 3.5. I really enjoyed the ballerina part of this book. But as I'm talking about it, I want to say just it's a 4. I don't know. I really enjoyed this book. And that is that. All right, last book is actually 4 books, but it's all a series. I don't own the 4th one, but I read the first 4 books in the Finlay Donovan series by El Casamino. The 5th book just came out yesterday. I'm actually going to meet this author next week. It was like a coincidence situation, okay? So I randomly picked up Finlay Donovan and I love the fuck out of it. So then I picked up the 2nd book and I couldn't stop and I just read the 3rd and then the 4th. And then after I finished the 4th, I was like Googling when the 5th book came out and stumbled upon the fact that she's gonna be in my town next week. I was like, okay, slay, I'm gonna wait and buy the book when I go meet her next week. So that's gonna be really fun. This is a 4-star series for me. These all got 4 stars. Boom, boom, and boom. The 4th one, I believe I gave 3.5 star. I don't know if it's because I shouldn't have binged the entire series in one sitting. I should have spaced it out a little bit. I don't know if I was just getting tired. The 4th book had that 2nd book feel to it, typically. Like 2nd book syndrome is what they used to call it. But anyway, we're gonna just talk about the 1st book. I'm not going to talk about the rest because spoilers, duh. In this one we have Finlay Donovan. She is an author. She is divorced. She has 2 precious little kids and an idiot husband that I cannot stand. She's struggling real hard. Struggling real hard. She can barely put gas in her car. She goes to meet her, like, I need to learn what it's called because same thing from the other book. It's the person that's over you that you talk to about your book. She goes and meets them to discuss where her book is at, whatever. Somebody overhears and they think that instead of like the book being a murder mystery, they think that she's a hitman. They leave a piece of paper on the table at the Panera being like, I have a job for you, contact me, $5,000, or not $5,000, it was like 50 grand or something like that. And at first she contemplates it and she's like, I don't know, this is kind of weird, I'm gonna throw it away. But then desperate times, babe. Desperate times. This was so funny. So funny. That was a very shitty job of me pitching it to you. We have our side character, Vera. She like takes the cake. There is a novella that I believe just follows her, but she's so funny. Favorite character is definitely the side character, Vera. The kids are funny and there's like a love interest. First there's a love triangle. Then it kind of sizzles down to just a love interest. I enjoyed this. 10 out of 10 recommends. It's a fun, happy time. It's like a murder mystery, but funny. Like you know those movies that you see? It kind of reminded me of not like what happens in the movie, but just the vibes. You know, like Miss Congeniality? Shit's going down, but it's funny. That's what it kind of reminds me of. I loved it, and I read all 4 of them the last week of February. So anyway, those are the 16 books that I read in February, and I'm already on a roll in March, babe. It's gonna be a crazy month. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video, and let me know down below what was your favorite book that you read in the month of February, because obviously if I have it on my TBR, then I can like reprioritize it and get it up there to the top, to the tip top. Girl, I don't know where this is going, but I do know that I need to get going, so I'm gonna let you go, and you have a good day, okay? Okay. Bye.